Hello friends, how are you doing? And I hope you all are having a great time and fun time. And today we are going to discuss about the NEET pattern exercises, some questions on the NEET pattern, in the chapter body fluids and circulation, right? So here we go with the first question. The systemic heart refers to enteric heart in the lower vertebrates. Okay, the two ventricles together in humans, that makes no sense. Two auricles and two ventricles we have definitely. The heart that contracts under stimulation from the nervous system, the left auricle and the left ventricle in the higher vertebrates. Right. The systemic heart is okay. Now in human beings, in us, what we have, we have a systemic and a pulmonary circulation. One is the systemic circulation when the blood is being, that is different, and this is different. This is systemic heart. Okay. So what we can write it as systemic heart refers to the enteric heart, right? Systemic heart refers to the enteric heart, which will pump blood, right? Which will pump blood to all the body parts, which will pump blood to all the body parts except the lung, and that's what we're saying, right? Except the lung. And this systemic heart or the enteric heart is present in the lower vertebrates. This is present in the lower vertebrates, right? So systemic heart refers to the enteric heart which pumps blood, which will pump blood to all the body parts except the lung, and this is present in the lower vertebrates. So that's what we mean when we say that the systemic heart refers to the enteric heart in the lower vertebrates, right? Let's move on to the next question. Which of the following, let me first rub this part. Right. So which of the following statements is true for the lymph? Lymph, lymph is formed in the interstitial tissues, and lymph is a portion of the blood. Okay, what happens, the blood comes out of certain defects in the endothelium of the capillaries, right? And that comes in the interstitial tissues, and is known as the lymph. Now lymph, what happens, lymph will finally flow to the lymph vessel, the lymphatic capillaries, and it will flow back, it will come back into the venous system. So which of the following statements is true for lymph, WBC and serum? I mean, this is not what it is. All components of the blood except for the RBC and some proteins. Yes, this is the right answer. That the lymph is composed of all the components of the blood except for the RBC and some proteins. Okay, let us see what the lymph is. Lymph, how the lymph is formed. Right. So some of the blood from the capillaries, some of the blood, right, from the capillaries, will, right, some of the blood from the capillaries will enter the interstitial space. So, some of the blood from the capillaries will enter the interstitial space through or by means of defect in the capillary endothelium. Right. So, some of the blood from the capillaries will enter the interstitial space through or by means of defect in the capillary endothelium, and this is known, okay, as the lymph, and this is known as the lymph. Now, what is the lymph? So, we are talking about the minute defects. So, what we will see, that the RBC answer proteins, they will not be able to come out of those defects, and that is why we say that lymph is composed of blood plasma, of blood minus RBC and proteins, right. So, this is what this, right. So, the lymph is composed of blood minus the RBC plus proteins, and this is what we see, right. Now, the lymph formed, it enters into the lymphatic capillaries and gets back into the venous system to be returned to the heart, right. So, what we can say is lymph now will enter the lymphatic capillaries and form a part of the lymphatic system and form a part of lymphatic system. So, lymph now will enter the lymphatic capillaries, right. Lymph now will enter the lymphatic capillaries and form a part of the lymphatic system, and hence will drain the entire lymph back into the circulation by means of venous system, and will drain the entire lymph back into circulation by venous system. Right. Got it? A little more we did about the lymph, but anyways, that is very important. Now we will move on to the next question. That is the third question we will be talking about. What is correct regarding leukocytes? These can squeeze out through, can cross the capillary walls. Yes, absolutely. These can cross the capillary walls, and that is called as diaperesis. These are enucleate. No, it's the RBC which are without the nucleus. That is a mature RBC. Sudden fall in the number indicates cancer. Not at all. These are produced in the thymus. Absolutely wrong. So, the best option, okay, in fact the correct option, not the best option, the correct option over here is these can squeeze out through the capillary walls, right. The leukocytes can squeeze out through the capillary walls. This leukocytes can squeeze out right. So, what we are seeing that the leukocytes can squeeze out through the capillary walls, right, and this is known as diapedesis. Okay, and this is known as diapedesis. Now, this squeezing out of the leukocytes is in response to the infection, okay, is in response to the antigen of the infection. So, the leukocytes will squeeze out and will engulf that bacteria or the antigen by phagocytosis, right. So, this moving out of the leukocytes, right, this moving out of the leukocytes is in response to the antigen or bacteria. Right, this moving out of the leukocytes is in response to the antigen or the bacteria, and hence destroys the bacteria by engulfing it in the process of phagocytosis, Okay, so as simple as that. That is, the moving out of the leukocytes is in response to the antigen of the bacteria and hence destroys the bacteria by engulfing it in the process of phagocytosis, right. So, now we will talk about the next question. Pulmonary artery is different from pulmonary vein, right. Pulmonary artery is different from the pulmonary vein. Now, they ask this question a lot of time because the arteries and veins will be similar to each other everywhere, except there is a difference. That difference is not mentioned in this question. I have given that question also, in this section we will discuss that. So, pulmonary artery is different because a larger lumen, thick muscular wall, no endothelium and valves. Now, we all know the difference between the artery and the veins. Now, the arteries, what we see, the arteries have a thick muscular wall, right. They have a thick muscular wall because they have to, these are arising from the heart and they have to supply blood to the entire body. So, they have a thick muscular wall, isn't it? They have a thick muscular wall. However, the veins, the muscular wall is not that thick, right. So, what we see here, the lumen of the artery will be much less because here, the middle, the muscle, the muscular layer is, thick, and here hence what happens, the lumen is narrow. However, the lumen is wider. Now, valves, in valves there is no flow, okay, there is no pressure. So, in valves, in veins there is no pressure. So, the blood tends to come back and hence there are valves in the veins. There are valves in the veins to prevent the backflow of blood, that is to enhance or promote the unidirectional flow of blood. However, in the arteries there are no valves. Okay, there are many more differences the arteries carry oxygenated blood except for one artery, we will talk about that, and the veins carry deoxygenated blood, okay, except for one vein. But I think till this, it's enough for to answer this question. that pulmonary artery is differentiated from pulmonary vein because it has thick muscular walls, right. What has thick muscular walls? That is the pulmonary artery, right. In mammals, the histamine is secreted by the mast cells, right. The histamine is secreted by the histamine is a potent vasodilator, and in areas, and these mast cells are highly present in the connective tissue cells, right. So histamine or histamine is a potent vasodilator, right. So histamine is a potent vasodilator. And secreted by mast cells. Okay, so what will we see? That histamine is secreted. Histamine is secreted in response to the injury or trauma, in response to the inflammation or trauma, right. So histamine is secreted in response to the inflammation or trauma, and hence increases the blood flow to the site, right, and it is highly present, it is present in large amounts where in the connective tissue, interstitial tissue, okay, right. So this will be the mast cells. So in mammals, histamine is secreted by the mast cells. Right. What is the next question? The correct route through which pulse making impulse travels in the heart is? Okay. So the correct route through which pulse making impulse travels in the heart is. Okay. We all know that SA node is a pacemaker of the heart, and this is where the impulse is generated. SA node is the pacemaker of the heart, right. SA node is the pacemaker of the heart. This is all we know. And then what we will see, the impulse is generated in the SA node. And then what happens? It travels to the interauricular septum, where the AV node will be there. That is septum. That is a septum between the two auricular chambers. So the impulse from the SA node then comes to the AV node, and from the AV node it will come to where? It will come to the bundle of His, right, and the Purkinje fibers, and finally to all the heart muscles. Will this impulse go. And so we can say, the answer for this will be, right. We will see, that the rate of the impulse will be highest, in the Purkinje fibers, right. So I hope you got this. The SA node. Now the SA node is situated in the wall of the right auricular septum. Wall of the right atrium. So if this is the heart, okay, and somewhere here the wall of the right atrium, and this will come here okay, where the AV node will be there in the interatricular septum, and then the bundle of hairs, the right and left bundle of hairs, Purkinje fibers, and the heart muscles. So as I told you, the answer for this will be yes. Let us go to the next question now. Arteries carry oxygenated blood except this was the one I was talking about. Okay. Now we all know that arteries carry oxygenated blood and veins carry deoxygenated blood, but there is an exception. All arteries okay, so all arteries carry oxygenated blood except pulmonary artery. Right? So all arteries carry the oxygenated blood except the pulmonary artery. And similarly, all veins carry deoxygenated blood. Okay, so all veins will carry deoxygenated blood except for the pulmonary vein, except for the pulmonary vein. Right. So all veins carry deoxygenated blood except for the pulmonary vein, and all arteries will carry oxygenated blood except for the pulmonary artery. Now if we have to, so say this is the heart, right? We all know this is the right atrium, and here will be the pulmonary veins coming. Okay, the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, the blood will come here, and from here, the blood will flow. Okay, these are the pulmonary arteries, and into the lungs. So this is the pulmonary artery. So that's why we say, pulmonary artery is taking blood away from the heart, like the other arteries. Okay, so pulmonary artery is taking the blood away from the heart, like the other arteries, but we see here that this is carrying the deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and from the lungs, right, what we see that oxygenated blood comes by the pulmonary vein. That oxygenated blood is coming via the pulmonary vein, right, via the pulmonary vein, and this is what we see here, right. Then what will we see? So arteries carry oxygenated blood except for the pulmonary artery. This is the right option, right. Which one engulfs pathogens rapidly? Absolutely wonderful. Now we all know that neutrophils, these are the granulocytes. Okay, so which one engulfs pathogens rapidly are the neutrophils. Neutrophils are the acute mediators of inflammation. That is, immediately when they see an infection, what happens? They will, they'll quickly move out of the blood vessel. Okay, and by the time how do they move, either through, maybe there might be an injury and there might be a leak in the blood vessel or the capillary, and so hence they will move out, right, and hence they will move out, and what they will do, they will be they will be destroying the foreign pathogen by means of phagocytosis. Okay, so we can say that yes, neutrophils okay, so neutrophils are the acute mediators of inflammation. Okay, so what we see here, that neutrophils are the acute mediators of inflammation. So whenever there is an infection, in the wrong chalk, whenever there is an infection, it will be first the neutrophils. Okay, it will be the neutrophils which will be, okay, so whenever there is an infection, it will be the neutrophils which will be coming out of the tissue, which will be coming out of the vascular channel, okay, which will be coming out of the vascular channel, and engulfing the bacteria or the foreign antigen. Or the foreign antigen by the process of phagocytosis, right. So whenever there is an infection, it will be the neutrophils, which will be coming out of the vascular channel, right, and engulfing the bacteria or the foreign antigen by the process of phagocytosis. Okay, later on the lymphocytes and all do also, they do play major role, but initially it is what? Initially it is a neutrophil, and these are neutrophils which have granules, okay, which will be having granules in their cytoplasm, right. We move on to the next question. Yes, this is a very common question, very easy, but very common also, and that is why I have included. They asked this many times, right. So now what we will see, child death may occur in the marriage of Rh positive man and Rh positive woman, Rh positive man and Rh negative woman, Rh negative man and Rh negative woman, and Rh negative man and Rh negative woman. Okay, let's forget these four options and let us see. This is a case of erythroblastosis foetus, right. This is the case of erythroblastosis. fetless. Okay, so this is a case of erythroblastosis fetless, and what will we see here? I'm just picking up the chalks, right? Now what will we see here, that in the first case, what will we see, what happens, the child in the first delivery, right, the child will be Rh positive, and the mother, okay, and the mother will be what? Will be Rh negative. Right? So what is happening here in the first delivery, what we will see, that the child will be Rh positive and the mother will be Rh negative. Right. So what will we see, the mother is Rh negative and the child is Rh positive. So initially the mother will not have antibodies. The mother will not have antibodies, but what happens if the second child is Rh positive, right? So in that case, the second child, in this case the first child will be born. The first child will be born. Right. Now the Rh antibodies have been, the Rh antibodies have been synthesized. Okay. Now the Rh antibodies have been synthesized. So hence the second fetus, the second child, if it's Rh positive, okay, the second child if it's Rh positive will be acted upon by antibody, and there would be the death of the fetus, and hence death of the fetus, right, and hence death of the fetus, right. So what we will see, that in that case it will be an Rh negative woman and an Rh positive man. Okay, Rh positive man and Rh negative woman can be one of the case, right. So now we move on to the next question. The RBCs do not occur in which? Frog, cow, camel, it should be camel, and the cockroach. So what are RBCs? RBCs, why are there RBCs in us? They are the transporters of oxygen, right? They are the transporters of oxygen, and blood, basically is a transporter, is a transporting medium for nutrients, for gases, and RBCs transport oxygen or in combination with hemoglobin. But cockroach, these have the hemolymph for the transport of nutrients, right? Cockroach have hemolymph, right? Have hemolymph for the transport of nutrients, for the transport of nutrients. Hence RBC will be absent in them. Hence RBC will be absent in them. Right. So, the answer for this will be cockroach, right. That is, yes, RBCs do not occur in cockroach. So, friends, with this we have come to the end of this session with the 10 questions. I hope this was interactive and absorptive. Okay. We will be coming up with more questions. Till that time, have a good time and nice time. Thank you.